A growing number of state legislators across our country, along with enthusiastic and eager citizens, are hard at work producing legislation to restrict or prohibit poisonous chemtrail spraying and aerial release of poisonous chemicals, radioactive metals, and parasites into the very air we breathe. And the celebrations have begun, from legislators tooting their own horns to citizens proclaiming victory, all the way to anti-chemtrail advocacy groups breaking out the champagne. But hold on, don't pop that cork yet, because I'm about to show you that you've been duped. This is the Dr. Jane Ruby Show, and you're about to enter Truth in Medicine. Welcome to the Dr. Jane Ruby Show on this Monday, April 21st, 2025. And a warm welcome to my title sponsor, Augusta Precious Metals, an incredible group of people that will educate you on how to protect your lifelong earnings with physical gold. Just like the governments all over the world, including our own right now, are scrambling to buy up all the gold they can because they know no matter how much praise there is for crypto or Bitcoin or this coin or that coin, that ultimately gold will always be the protector. Well, I hope everyone who celebrated had a joyous Easter this past weekend. The topic of government spraying poison into the air has risen now to the top of public awareness, particularly over the last 6 months. I personally, as many of you know, have collected residue samples from areas throughout South Florida where we have had repeated uncharacteristic fog-like episodes, atypical weather patterns like high winds, the dimming of what is normally one of the brightest states in the country. And now, noticeable reductions in delicate wildlife like birds and fish, the disappearance of honeybees, and thanks to the lab work of some of my samples by the health ranger, Brighteon founder Mike Adams, we now know that we are being intentionally poisoned with mercury, radioactive metals like cadmium, cesium, poisons like arsenic, and super high levels of aluminum. This has become such a hugely visible issue now that it has sparked the attention of state legislators. They never let an opportunity go by to build up that re-election kitty, don't they? Well, it all sounds well and good until you realize that these state bans accumulating one at a time across our nation are really empty. They're really empty. And why do I say that? Well, what really drew my attention to this fact was that these are fake restrictions, okay? And what drew my attention to it was that the recent messages that I was getting and seeing in general across the social media and to me directly on my website, drjaneruby.com, and directed to my public email, realdrjaneruby@proton.me, I started to hear a lot from the people of Tennessee, whose state, as you might remember, was one of the earliest to implement legislation to stop this horrific destruction of our environment. We're reporting in great numbers that not only had the spraying not stopped after their state chemtrail ban was put into place by their legislators, but it had actually increased in frequency and intensity, with noticeable large numbers of people reporting sickness afterwards. And the unusual weather that we now know can be manipulated and is manipulated by the government, mostly from military bases, since this appears to be an extension of what we have come to learn is the DoD mass genocide operation that became very clear with the rollout of the COVID scam in 2020. Taking out huge portions of real estate, like the Lahaina Maui precision-specific fires, like the biblical-like floods and souped-up hurricanes in North Carolina and Tennessee last fall. It's all becoming very easy to see that this is part of a government operation. So what's a state government to do? Well, your state legislators are every bit as dirty, corrupted, owned as the 535 cockroaches up on Capitol Hill. Yes, my friends, the money all trickles down. The compliance with fraud all trickles down. And so when the people of Tennessee in great numbers were reporting that they were still sprayed and that it was even worse, it called my attention to ask the question, why would that be? Take a look at this tweet recently from Sarah Lisbeth on Twitter, at Lisbeth, lowercase Sarah 136. She's replying to someone else. As a Tennessee resident, the law to stop geoengineering and the poisoning of our children and land did absolutely nothing. And our lawmakers knew it would do nothing. Anyone currently in office does not need to be reelected. And the lawmakers knew it wasn't going to make a difference. More on that later. So I asked myself, why wouldn't there be at least some kind of noticeable reduction? Even though logically we all understand that we share the same airspace, we breathe the same air as our surrounding states for the most part. However, if there are restrictions in a state or across a state, it might be logical to assume that there would be noticeable reductions in local areas. But that was not the case. And lo and behold, what did we find? We found a very interesting section in the United States Code, which, by the way, you should understand that the USC is severely problematic because it does not follow the Constitution, and in many cases it violates the U.S. Constitution blatantly and openly. You can do your own research on that for now to learn more about how that all came about and how it still survives to this day. But I call your attention for the purposes of this show tonight to Title 50 in the United States Code, subsections 1520 and 1521. I'm going to review the highlights of this portion of the code. But first, please understand that it reads like a restriction. It talks about whether modification, aerial spraying as military and scientific research comes off as very controlled, something that may happen in the future, something that is set up now to protect us from that. But that's all a bunch of happy horseshit. Because in reality, it lays out all of the things that they are doing right now and what appears to be a restriction. However, if you read into the next subsection, you will get to something called the exceptions clause. And this, addressing this and incorporating the ban on that, is what's missing in state laws. Your state legislators have failed to acknowledge and deal with the exceptions clause. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Senator Doug Mastriano, who is claiming victory, showing off. I just filmed this near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Stop spraying our skies. Pass SB 508. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, cut this multi-billion-dollar program. Well, let me tell you something. They're all laughing behind your back because they know that they don't have to deal with Title 50's exceptions. They're just grandstanding and looking like they're heroes. So let me take a moment and let me show you what I mean here. First of all, and then I'm going to show you how it connects to the PrEP Act. Okay, so in Title 50, subsection 1520, sub A, it says restrictions on the use of human subjects for testing of chemical or biological agents. Well, that sounds comforting, doesn't it? Restrictions, right? I want restrictions. But hold on. So it starts to describe what's called prohibited activities. The Secretary of Defense may not conduct, directly or by contract, any test or experiment, and it's always talked about in the context of this, these are experiments, involving the use of a chemical agent or biological agent on a civilian population. Number 2, any other testing of a chemical agent or biological agent on human subjects. Well, that sounds reasonable. Dr. Jane, why are you worried about that? They actually are protecting us. Well, until you get to, first of all, it's much more lengthy, and I'm not going to read this to you, but I want to explain something. It goes on to say, we are going to define here what are the toxins and biological agents that you are restricted from dropping or exposing the public to. Hold on. It says prior notice to Congress, then biological agent defined. You got to have prior notice to Congress. You have to give them 30 days notice. You have to have informed consent. The Secretary of Defense may conduct a test or experiment described in Section B only if informed consent to the testing was obtained from each human in advance of the testing on that subject. Well, that seems reasonable, doesn't it? Why are you so upset, Dr. Jane? Well, because there's an exceptions clause. And before I get to it, because basically what it says is you can't do all these horrible things except under these 3 conditions. Now, before I get to those 3 conditions, I want you to understand that they understand what they're not supposed to be dropping, except under the exceptions. Biological agents are defined, and this I must read to you because it is so outrageous. You need to hear it. You need to hear it directly from me. And if you have a moment and you are in front of your computer or maybe your phone and you can get online, then just type in Title 50, 1520, and you can read along with me. However, I'm going to read it to you in the meantime. In this section, the term biological agent means any microorganism, including bacteria, viruses, whatever, synthetic, whatever they create, fungi, rickettsia or protozoa, pathogen, or infectious substance, and any naturally occurring bioengineered or synthesized component or method of production that is capable of causing, stay with me, that is capable of causing one of 3 or all of 3 things. 1, death, disease, or other biological malfunctions in a human, an animal, a plant, or other living organism. Or number 2, deterioration of food, water, equipment, supplies, or materials of any kind. Or 3, deleterious alteration of the environment. That includes the destruction of you as a human being, the destruction of animals, any animal, and the destruction of the environment, plant life, ecosystems, sunlight, natural energy, vibrations, frequency in the world. You might say, well, that's great, Dr. Jane, because those are the restrictions on the use of human subjects for testing of chemical and biological agents. You're going to see this on the screen briefly. Now, it says, subject to subsections C, D, and E, which I just read to you, the prohibition in subsection A does not apply to a test or experiment carried out for any of the following purposes. And this is where the PrEP Act is going to come in. The 3 exceptions, this is the exceptions clause that I've been highlighting, talking about, screaming from the rooftops over the last couple of weeks on social media. This is the exceptions clause that every state legislator so far that I know has ignored, has not addressed, has not answered, has completely left out of their state ban of chemtrails, geoengineering, weather modification, stratospheric aerosol injections, the whole thing. the exceptions clause. You can't do any of these horrific things except if one of these three exceptions exists. And that is number one, any peaceful purpose that is related to a medical, therapeutic, pharmaceutical, agricultural, industrial, or research activity. Jesus, take the wheel, because I don't know what is left out of that. It's a free-for-all. Medical, therapeutic, pharmaceutical, agricultural, industrial, or research activity. There, my friends, my fellow Americans, is where the PrEP Act comes in. One moment. Number two, let's get through the three exceptions. Any purpose that is directly related to protection against toxic chemicals or biological weapons and agents. See, we have to test them on you to make sure that we know how to handle them if we are attacked with them. Oh, okay. Number three, any law enforcement purpose. Oh, including any purpose related to riot control. What has every president from Obama to Biden, Obama to Trump to Biden to Trump done? They've basically turned American citizens into domestic terrorists. And, you know, a domestic terrorist is anytime, we are vulnerable to a riot breaking out. Now, I think any of them could be used to be an exception for them to do. And who else has the depth and breadth of air power, technology, not just aircraft, but they do, the U.S. military drones, other military vehicles that can be seen and not seen to get this all out. Okay. Those three exceptions are what I'm concerned about. That's why the people of Tennessee see more and continued chemtrailing, feeling sick. I've had to cover my outdoor plants because the disgusting collection of these metals and mercury and toxins and parasite eggs is looking like what we have, and profuse bacteria. God knows what the results of that bacteria is going to be on human health, right? I've had to cover them. I have very, very the advanced air purification in every room in my house. And I can tell you that when the doors and windows are open, those things are off the charts, flashing red, and a danger. Okay. All right, let me talk about the PrEP Act, because it's the PrEP Act that is putting its arms around exception number one. Exception number one is any peaceful purpose that is related to medical, therapeutic, pharmaceutical, agricultural, industrial, or research activity. We have the mRNA bioweapon toxic shots still flooding the United States and the world. I could go down the list here. Pharmaceutical, carte blanche. It just goes on. Agricultural, oh yeah, we're gonna, got a, COVID positive or bird flu positive, bird chicken. It's a miracle how it never takes out wild birds, but it just gets one or two chickens on a chicken farm, and you got to wipe out 180,000 chickens. All part of it. Agricultural, industrial, research activity. Anything's going to be called research activity. Okay. Let's look at the PrEP Act. First of all, before I close out a little bit on the USC 50, subsections 1520 and 1521, I want to remind you that this was originally entered into the U.S. Code, or it is supposedly entered in as a protection. But that was a ruse. It appears now that was a ruse, because what follows, as I said, is the exceptions clause, which you have to understand negates everything in the restrictions. And it's important for you to understand that these exceptions are activated by the PrEP Act. It's important that you understand that the PrEP Act opens up the floodgates of money and power to the government. It should keep you up at night. It should scare you. The PrEP Act pretends to be in a state of readiness that justifies the transfer of wealth, the ongoing, and that under certain proclamations, by the way, which I've already been made, like a COVID emergency extended now to 2029. You can see here, HHS on December 10th, by the last hours, days of the Biden administration, December 10th, 2024, HHS extends the PrEP Act through 2029. Yeah, that's correct. The PrEP Act has been extended under the disguise of and continuation of a public health emergency for COVID to 2029. Now, it was just done at the end of the Biden administration, as I said, but don't you think it would have been a top priority to suspend it at the beginning of the Trump administration? Or maybe the beginning of the Kennedy HHS directorship? It's been almost 90 days. And the fact that it has not been suspended or rescinded should be a great concern to you. And it should tell you that the Trump administration still approves it. They're presiding over it. As long as the PrEP Act is extended and active, the exceptions clause in the chemtrail will remain, and the chemtrail program will remain active. Trillions of dollars can be handed over to the DOD. What do you think that $1 trillion budget is for? And then through the agencies like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, very dangerous. Everything is funded. Your universities are funded to develop these poisons. In fact, Florida State University and the University of Florida have been given many millions of dollars to do this work, to poison their own citizens in their own state. They're given, the money originally is given to non-government organizations or NGOs, and who then funnel the money to other entities like universities, private research groups, and even smaller entities like the morons who sent up the silicon dioxide balloons over in California into the sky. And they're probably still doing it, even though EPA Director Lee Zeldin did his little dog and pony show and made a recent public announcement that he was going to look into it. Oh, okay. Okay, Lee, you should always be concerned when the government says, we're going to look into it, or we're going to investigate it, or God forbid, we're going to hold a hearing. How did hearings work out for all of those in the Benghazi atrocities? How did hearings work out for those of you who've been injured by the COVID shots? Not too well. But that's how the money gets funded. There's one agency in particular that gets billions of dollars from the NOAA, and that is something called UCAR, which stands for the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. It's neither a university or a corporation, but they do give billions and billions of dollars funneled from NOAA, which ultimately gets its sourcing from Health and Human Services, circling back to our old buddy Robert Kennedy Jr., the fraud, the sellout, and the total scumbag who just threw his fellow Americans under the bus, as well as Children's Health Defense. They're scrambling to try to, stay above, well, we're not, we don't, they don't come out and say it, but they don't support everything he says. But we don't support the measles, even though because they got to keep that funding. And I don't blame them. They've done some great work. They are tarnished. They're tarnished. They're muddied up. They're dirtied by him. By the most corrupt of all the Kennedys. And that's saying a lot. So the money is a circle jerk of wealth transfer, round and around and around your alphabet agencies. And I'd like to add that all of the people in Trump's cabinet did promise to dismantle and rebuild their agencies. It's going to be a new day, like FDA, FBI, NIH, and all the other fraudulent agencies led by unelected bureaucrats that have made our lives a living hell for the last 5 years. None of them, who are new in the Trump cabinet, have done anything but maintain the status quo. And that's because every president and every Congress has always been on the same page. There are no two parties. There's always been one party. When I return, we're going to look at some of the ways for all of you to help build protections on your local level. Fascinating stuff, but some hope ahead. I'll be right back. Let's be honest, DC isn't going to give you a heads up when things go south. The market's already sliding. Inflation, still here, and over $4.2 trillion has just vanished from retirement accounts. And a recession is looking like it's now unavoidable. Look, that may not shake the billionaires on Wall Street, but if you've got a 401k or IRA, a hit like that could be a disaster. That's why more folks are turning to Augusta Precious Metals. They help you move part of your retirement into physical gold, something real, something that holds value when everything else is falling apart. And the best part? They make it simple. No pressure, no games, just a team that actually takes the time to walk you through it. So if you're serious about protecting what you've earned, go to goldwithjane.com or call them at 888-836-1890 and grab Augusta's free Gold IRA guide. It's your retirement. Make sure it's protected. Welcome back to the Dr. Jane Ruby Show. Tonight, I'm very glad you're with me because this is important information, and it is a direct follow-up to the first segment where I showed you how state bans on chemtrails are meaningless. They're useless. They're empty. And that's why the people of Tennessee will tell you that even though they were one of the first states to get a ban on chemtrail and geoengineering operating in their state skies, they have been sprayed more frequently and more heavily ever since, in spite of that legislations. Do their legislators know this? Well, if you ask me, I fully believe they do, because I don't have faith in elected officials. They're all tied into the same corruption. But before I get to those people in that topic, I want to share something else with you. Somebody wrote, I want to give them credit. This was an amazing, it's actually a bit of a thread, but it's Penguin X01 on Twitter, X, and he or she says, Dr. Ruby is right to focus on Title 50, 1520A. And I thought this was beautifully stated. It is the legal architecture of atmospheric warfare. And Penguin, if you'll allow me, I will use that along the way to educate people because I think it's an incredible statement. Title 50, the exceptions clause, is the legal architecture of atmospheric warfare. And Penguin goes on to say most bans, I would say all, but whatever, most bans are just theatrical optics unless they directly nullify this federal override. Beautifully stated. I thank you so much for that. Before I get to, let's see, I want to acknowledge a couple of other people and who helped me put this together directly or indirectly. And, you know, one of them is Ann Vandersteel, who's just done so many, you know, she's a very well versed in state nationalism, common law. She's taught me a lot. The people she's associated with have taught me a lot. And this is where our work has intersected. And so that's going to be the hopeful part tonight that I'm going to explain to you and show you one little step that you can all do. But first, let's get back to the legislators that have been part of, whether they're in Florida, in my state, or they're in Tennessee, or the other 20 or 30 by now states that are doing this. Why are they doing it? I believe they're pretending to be heroes. And when they can get this legislation going or get it through, they're doing it knowing ahead of time that they're defrauding the public into thinking that something will be done and that these aerial assaults and poisonings will stop. And this is why they're allowed to do it by the machine. But what it's really used for is really re-election campaigning. When you think about it, oh, I pushed that chemtrail. Oh yeah, Senator, you pushed that chemtrail thing through our state. Man, you are a hero. You're the only one that's done anything this year. But they knew they didn't really put anything through that was going to mean anything. I'll tell you, the people in Tennessee, you ought to start legally attacking your legislators who put that through. Pull their surety bonds if they have them on the local level. Anybody involved on the local level, everybody on up to the state level, check their oath of office. If they don't have one, they're impersonating an elected official. Got a lot to work with, guys. Got a lot to work with. Like I said, what it's really used for is what I told Senator Ron Johnson 2 years ago in an email after he held these phony dog and pony shows with the same suspects, like Malone and some of those people up there that he brought up to D.C. Nothing will come of it except your re-election campaign. And sure enough, the only thing you guys got out of that, especially those of you injured by the COVID shots, mRNA bioweapon shots, was a re-election donation card from Senator Johnson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the other phonies up there that held hearings. Look, but here's what we need to do now so that you understand the importance of the exceptions clause in Title 50. You are actually empowered with the right information and knowledge, and you will be by the end of this show. You can actually lawfully call your legislators out who have passed this type of legislation, or if your state legislators are in the process of discussing and putting something together, you can leverage pressure on them that their work is not going to be done or completed or acceptable, and that they will not be reelected to the best of your ability on this shallow and fraudulent victory unless they tackle the issue of Title 50's exceptions clause. Now, I am by far not an expert in common law. I'm still learning. I reach out to people that I'm learning more and more from, people that I now consider friends and colleagues, like someone named Creditor on Twitter. Like I said, Ann Vandersteel and Maureen Steele from AmericanMade.org. American Made. Go check that out. Attorney Ron Bouchard, who's doing incredible work along with that group, and so many other heroes that are trying to get this information out to people to help educate every one of us so that we can all file as a first step what's called an affidavit of truth. Now, let me share a little bit of information with you, and I want to give credit to somebody on Twitter called Kevin Real World Fair. Love this guy's work. It's right up there with Creditor and Ann Vandersteel. Says private attorney of truth and fact. You can see his Twitter post, okay? He's done a tremendous job in collecting a lot and putting out a lot of this education. These are lengthy tweets, but I'm telling you, cut and paste and put them in your notes section and save them. But let's start, and I want to thank him for the work that he did to educate you on this. Now, here's a tweet he put out that I thought was just absolutely genius. Because you're probably asking yourself, an affidavit? What am I, in a deposition? Like, I don't know what can I do? Is that something that I can legally file? Let's take it from the beginning. Let's go through the importance of an affidavit of truth and why I'm so hot on this idea. My favorite part of it is, once you file an affidavit of truth, which essentially explains what your grievance is against an entity, the state, the legislature, they have a certain amount of time to respond, to show rebuttal evidence, to respond to the accusations, to explain them. And most of the time, people don't understand this, or they just don't respond. They just get away, you little fly. And when you do not respond to an affidavit of truth, in the law, the absence of a response is an admission of guilt. And this cannot be denied by those working in the law. So now that you have a little basis upon which people can create, when you file these affidavits of truth, imagine hundreds of thousands in each state, maybe millions in each state, filing an affidavit of truth against their state legislatures. You're creating a basis upon which people can start putting together citizen grand juries and list their local elected constitutional sheriffs and bring together the necessary force of the people, we the people, under our Constitution, to then move on to indicting or starting to arrest and start holding people accountable. And this is all lawful, and it's in many cases, and it's legal. And if you do this on the local, and then to state level, imagine the focus is going to shift to accountability. I want to also give some thanks and call attention to the website. Really impressive, very helpful. We the People, then the number 2.us. That's we the people, number 2.us. You can see it up on the screen. An incredible website of information and education on how to fill out this affidavit line by line, and explains essentially what you're doing is filing what's referred to as a lawful notification letter. A lawful notification letter. And we'll take a look at what's in that as well, so that you have a better understanding of what you're communicating and the level of power that you hold in your hands. Did you know that your own signature already is such a powerful thing? There's so much power to it. You don't even know that because they've kept that from us. It can create money. It can create lawful leverage. It can create summoning of the United States Constitution and all of its protective powers. So one of the steps is to get your signature on the document, the affidavit of truth, and the notice of legal notification, to get it notarized, because the notarization adds a whole nother level of power to your signature, into the document, by virtue of your signature. Okay, I don't have the bandwidth in the scope of the show to teach, through all of this, but I'm going to cover it, from a sort of a highlight perspective, these documents, to get you started and to give you a place to go, to read more, to answer your questions, to fill in your gaps, right? So it's we the people, number 2.us. Great place to start. Okay, so let me take you through this. So back to, he used to be Kevinomics. So this is a screenshot, and then he changed it to Kevin Real World Fair. Okay, so he, she, sometimes people put a picture up, doesn't matter. He or she is a person who's just done incredible work. Okay, so take a look at this with me. The first thing you need to understand, and by the way, common law comes from the Bible. It comes from, God's law. That's where all law begins. So in commerce, for any matter to be resolved, it must be expressed. In other words, you can't accuse somebody of something, but not accuse them directly. Okay, that's just sort of sound familiar to you. He lists biblical citations for the origins and then tells you what the legal maxim is. To lie is to go against the mind. An Oriental proverb says, of all that is good, sublimity is supreme. The truth is supreme. Principle number 2, truth is expressed in the form of an affidavit. An affidavit is a statement, right? Cites Leviticus, cites Numbers, Matthew, James. I'll let you look those up because you can screenshot this, or you can go and look in his Twitter. Number 3, and this is what I referred to earlier, an unrebutted affidavit stands as truth in commerce. Whoa. Whoa. Do you know what that means? An unrebutted affidavit has to be viewed then as an admission of that charge. It stands as the truth. That's why it's an affidavit of truth. You need to talk to other people that are more versed in this, but it essentially is something you can do. Let's say you're going to sue somebody because they caused you damage or harm. You can file an affidavit of truth along with it. And if they don't answer, okay. Again, I'm not the expert, but I'm fascinated and I'm learning as fast as I can. Number 4, he who leaves the battlefield first loses by default. I'm going to, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to deal with you. Well, yeah, you are going to deal with me because you're going to lose by default. Cites the book of Job and Matthew. And the legal maxim is, he who does not repel a wrong when he can occasions it. So if you don't rebut that, you don't repel it, you don't deny it, you're basically admitting it. Next, an unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment in commerce. That's your judgment. That's as powerful or more powerful than a judge making a decision saying, yep, you're going to pay him because you wronged him, and this is how it's going to show. Your unrebutted affidavit becomes the judgment that you can then collect on. A judgment is something you collect on, right? Judge filed a judgment against him. He's got to pay X, Y, and Z. Okay. See why it's so exciting? It's really great. And then lastly here, all are equal under the law, God's law, moral and natural law. Of course, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Matthew, Luke. The legal maxim is no one is above the law. Commerce, by the law of nations, ought to be common and not to be converted into a monopoly like maritime law and the private gain of a few. And it has been. It's been hijacked, and we have allowed it to be hijacked. Okay. Let me show you the legal notice. Now, I put this up on my Twitter because I consolidated it. And I think this is really, really helpful. You can file your own affidavit of truth, which incorporates a lawful notification letter, and stop fake state chemtrail bans. Because if we don't stop and we don't flush out the truth, these people are going to go celebrating. They're going to go having parties. They're going to go, oh, yeah, Senator so-and-so, he got us out of the chemtrails. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. No, and they're going to get reelected. You're going to be sitting there wondering, why am I still being sprayed? Why am I still sick from all this? Because you didn't stop the fake state chemtrail bans. Okay? All right. So creating a legal notification letter. You can find this, again, on the website, wethepeople2.us. A lawful notification letter with notice of liability is a written communication that informs another, an individual or an entity, the legislature, maybe an individual legislator, about a perceived violation of breach of trust. And you know something? When they put through those state bans and they don't acknowledge or even deal with Title 50's exemptions, they are perpetrating a fraud on you. They are violating and breaching a trust, the public trust. This type of letter is often used when one party believes that the other has failed to fulfill its obligations, boom, and wants to put the responsible party on notice of potential consequences or liabilities so they will have the opportunity to respond. Because you see, if these congressional cockroaches, the 535 on Capitol Hill, say, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of chemtrails. Yeah, I'm going to have a hearing. And these state legislators who claim they put a law through to protect you, if they are found through this affidavit of truth to be guilty of breaching that trust, they have committed a crime, and they are by de facto they're complicit in the crimes that the federal government is perpetrating on us through the exceptions clause of Title 50, subsections 50, 1520, and 1521. So it breaks down here the recipient's information, notice of title, sender's information. This is where you can respond back to me. Either it's through, my representative or myself, or here's my PO box or whatever it is. The nature of the complaint. And this is where you outline their fraud. They're fraud. Now, if they want to respond and say, no, I didn't intentionally defraud you, I didn't know that existed. I mean, a few of them might still not know. Give me a chance. We're going to pull this back into session and we're going to add that and we're going to deal with it. And we're going to go to the federal government, whatever. You've really gotten a lot accomplished there. But if they don't, then they are saying to you, basically, I'm part of the crime and I know it. Okay? Okay. So then third column, it just finishes showing, it talks to you about the remedial section, notice of liability and opportunity for remedial action. In other words, here's what you did wrong and here's how you can make it right, legislator. Okay? This section serves to notify recipients of the consequences of disregarding our lawful directives and offers them a chance to rectify their behavior. So, and then it teaches you need to autograph and two witnesses in front, and that's what happens when you get a notary stamp, a notarized version of your signature on this document. They'll have to have two witnesses and the notary. And everybody who signs before a notary signs under the pains and penalty of perjury. Okay. This document is gender specific, of which we know there are only two, and that's how we're going to roll. Okay. All right. Let's see what else here. Now this is the, oh, I've shown you that. That's just the title page. Okay. I'm not going to bring that back up again. Okay. Was there anything I wanted to share with you about? Okay. I'm going to bring this up again, even though I talked about it in the first segment. It's a little non sequitur, but very briefly, this UCAR, UCAR lower underscore, sorry, and then news on Twitter. It's University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, nonprofit consortium of 115 plus universities that they're using and funding to poison us. How wonderful. Fostering innovation in Earth system science. You know what? Get the F out of my Earth science, okay? Get out of my science. What are you, God? Get out of here. I don't need your science. This is, okay, and then they've got another one at NCAR. You can see it here, underscore science. This is an NGO that takes billions of dollars from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, which, if you look at their website, explains all of the different chemtrails, stratospheric aerosolization, infusions and the chemicals and what they're doing. And they just make it sound so wonderful and so happy. They're doing great work. Learn how to interpret, forecast, and communicate location-specific fire weather. You know, I know it's going to blow people's mind. They always write to me and go, "You're not that old." I'll show you my driver's license, black out my address. I'm going to tell you something. I'm 70 years old. I've never, ever heard or seen anything, any meteorologist, any weather person talk about fire weather until the Lahaina. Precision, we had some houses taken out. We had a nice clean one. Fire weather and fire weather. Florida is a humid state. It's usually about 60 to 80% humidity, depending on the time of the year. It's not 10. It's not like the forests in California with like 10% or 5% humidity. And you could just walk by and two leaves run by each other and boom, you've got a forest fire. Another topic for another show. Okay. I think this is a hopeful opportunity. Okay. I mean, I've been accused many times in the last few years of, bringing you much difficult news, the dark side of everything, always reminding you of what the hard truths are. But it's always been truth, and it's always been rooted in truth. This term black pill is really it's just another label. It's like racist or whatever. It's designed to muddy you up a little bit. They're not going to call you a truth teller, right? And I've been admonished for not bringing solutions. Now, look, I can't do everything, but I do feel a responsibility when people point that out to try to bring maybe some solution or some source where we can find solutions. So I'm starting to try to bring as many as I can as I learn about them. Tonight should be a tremendous eye opener for all of you, plus the gift of a very realistic and powerful beginning solution to these programs. Don't let your state legislators, right, or any of the 535 cockroaches up on Capitol Hill, don't let any of them gaslight you, defraud you, and continue to steal from you while telling you they're doing everything they can to help you. Crazy, right? I think that's it for tonight, everyone. I want to mention that last Friday night's show with Sasha Latapova was another blockbuster. She brought all the receipts. She's done all the historical documents. It is the U.S. Army that creates flu season. Hot mic, you got it. They create, there's a new Asian variant. There's a new Asian flu coming. How come they always come in the winter? And we could talk about that all day long, but that's why the virus versus no virus argument, is always heated up and ongoing, because you're not catching from each other. You're being poisoned from the sky. I want you to watch that. I've actually put together a short clip on it. I'm going to put that out in my social media. In fact, let me do this. I think this would be great. Before I say goodnight to you, let me slip this in and let's roll that tape. That's about a minute. So watch this.
That was used by the Army ostensibly to study airflow over the United States and to study the dispersal patterns of any aerosolized material was these so-called fluorescent particles or zinc cadmium sulfide. Both zinc and cadmium were found in large quantities by Mike in the samples that you provided. So I think one of the agents that are being sprayed is these fluorescent particles because they've always done it. And these particles are easy to track because they fluoresce. But they contain zinc and cadmium, and the Army claimed always that they're benign. But if you look at the CDC technical sheet, it can bioaccumulate, so enough of it distributes on the ground and the soil and in the plants and animals, and ultimately gets into humans. They do cause respiratory flu-like infections. So the Army used these fluorescent particles as a test of dispersals in numerous tests over the years. The largest one they did was called Large Area Coverage Operation Large Area Coverage, or Operation LAC. They flew thousands of flights, crisscrossed the entire United States. This was to disperse these particles all over the United States. And due to air currents, some of it went over Canada. And interestingly, in that season, we had what's so-called Asian flu pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Right? So Asian flu pandemic was announced when, after the spraying, the US population and Canadian population started having abnormal flu season. So what do we do? Well, CDC comes in and says, there was a new virus in China, and it spread all over the world, and we have an Asian flu pandemic now.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. They create flu season. Oh, it's going to be fall and summer. It's going to be fall and winter. Remember dark winter, winter of death and all that? They're creating it. She explains to you how they've had a long history of spraying and disseminating and then saying, we're expecting a rough flu season, so get your shot. And people start to see people get sick around them because they planted it. Oh my gosh. It was really an incredible segment. Watch the entire segment. It's one after the other. Those kinds of truths that she brings, that she's just a study, church mouse. I mean, she's just reading, and she brings the receipts. Anyway, I'll say goodnight for now, everyone. Thank you so much for being with me tonight. Follow me every day on Twitter and Telegram, and you'll find all of my shows and coffee chats right here on Rumble, the Rumble channel. That's rumble.com/Dr. Jane Ruby, right where you are now watching it, hopefully, and support my work if you're so inclined. All of the information that I work with is, or all the different ways rather that you can support me are down below here in my link stack. Many different ways, digitally or send a check or whatever. And I wanted you to just remind you, regardless of the ankle biters out there, I'm not controlled actually by anybody. Because I don't take money from anybody. I'm not working for anybody. I don't take money from any corporation. I'm not associated with the government in any way, not any entity at all. And the modest commissions from my affiliate sales go to pay for the technical aspects of the Dr. Jane Ruby Show. You're looking at me under studio lights, and sometimes the bulbs burn out. So I use that very diligently and very carefully, and with amazing gratitude for everything that you all do to keep me going. I do it all alone. I don't have a team. A lot of people write to me and go, Dr. Jane, can you when you get together with your team next? Well, that team is me in the mirror. I don't have a team. I don't have a staff. I do everything on my own, everything. So with that said, I thank you all. I hope this brings you some hope. I hope it gives you some fire back in your belly, and I hope you have a wonderful night. May God bless all of you, and wish you all a pleasant good night.